Everybody, it's MLive's Nick Baumgartner here alongside basketball beat writer Brendan Quinn. We are at Crisler Center. Score one more time.
72-54.
72-54, Iowa takes it. The worst home loss, Brendan, for Michigan since 2010, 80-57 against Purdue. Remember, the 2010 year was at the beginning of that year, which was a rough start for Michigan. Either way, one of the worst defensive performances Beeline has probably ever had here at Michigan overall.
I mean, you have to give Iowa some credit. I mean, no way to slice it. I mean, I know Michigan got destroyed and all that, but when a team goes out and shoots 72% in the second half, 18 for 25 from the field, all right, that's going to be both. That's a defense that can't get stops, and that's a team that's just making shots. And it wasn't all dunks and layups. They're making outside shots. They're making mid-range jumpers off the bounce, off the pass, cutting across, and they were just doing everything right. I think it was just a classic example of just a young, smallish team just getting kind of worked by a bigger, better, more experienced club. That is a little bit desperate, too. Don't forget about that. Iowa coming off 3 straight losses. Came in here hungry, and like John Beilein pointed out in his post-game press conference, looked a lot like some Michigan teams that have gone into other places, other schools' home courts, and put some whoopings on people.
You could tell a little bit from Beilein tonight that
he didn't have any answers.
He's looking, and it's one of these things where, like he even said, he said at one point, we're grasping for straws, then he corrected himself and said maybe that's a bad phrase. But it's still, what's your sense on how he's kind of guiding himself through it? Because he hasn't stood up there and pounded his fist and thrown a fit, like, hey, we've lost all these guys, this is ridiculous, how many more bad breaks? How do you see him handling this, and how do you see him going through this?
It was difficult tonight to gauge how much he was talking about just, that defenseless feeling of like, we didn't have anything else that we could do, and I didn't have any answers, and we could have coached different ways, but this game was what it was going to be. I couldn't tell how much of that was big picture versus this game tonight, because Iowa, I'm sure if you watch them on film, clearly a matchup problem.
Yeah, it's the worst one they'll play.
They go, 6'2", 6'6", 6'7", 6'9", 7'2", across the line. Michigan can't match that length, that size, or their strength, and their skill level as well. So I don't know how much of it was just tonight. He didn't have any answers. He could call every timeout he had in his pocket and not be able to draw up anything to turn the tide on this one. But there were definitely some signs where he's kind of running out of answers in terms of how to get this, one identity maybe for this team, offensively or defensively, going forward.
Well, I think that's part of it is that it's shifted every game. It's been different every single game. And I don't know. Will they find one, I guess? Is it more advantageous for them to just kind of be a chameleon and change it up every time and maybe catch somebody by surprise?
I don't think there's enough there to settle on one thing at this point. Right. I mean, I think this is a group that is going to be piecemeal, and it's just going to be whatever you get night to night. You get Muhammad Ali, Abdur-Rahman scoring 18 at Michigan State. Great. All right. You get Aubrey Dawkins scoring 16 tonight, all in the second half. Great. But the thing is, you can't rely or count on anything to happen from night to night, and they still don't have a guy you can hand him the ball and say, "We're desperate for a basket. Go get us one." And that just doesn't exist here.
Right. Last thing, those two guys we just talked about, Dawkins and Abdur-Rahman, they both, 16 for Dawkins, 10 for Abdur-Rahman, and they both played. I think Muhammad played 37 minutes. Aubrey played almost 30. At what point, and maybe it's already happened, but at what point do you see, or do you say, if you're Beilein, you guys the offense has to run through Muhammad, because in my opinion, he's the best lead guard they have at the moment. And Aubrey has to look for his own shot a lot more, which means, Zach Irvin, you're not looking for your shot as much. At what point do you make that? I mean, because to me, I think
at this point, they're pretty much there.
Yeah.
And while I'm sure,
which is crazy.
I'm sure it is crazy. Well, I'm sure Beilein probably says it a little bit more delicately in practice and things like that. I think it's become clear that there are 2 primary scorers out there that are going to be the best options from night to night, and they're the only 2 guys that's on the team that can score at the rim and the outside and maybe put the ball on the floor a little bit. There's just no in between here. So you saw it in the second half. I mean, everyone knew that Dawkins was the only guy. He was the only option. And you saw the same at Michigan State where Abdur-Rahman. So you have one the other night, one tonight. At some point, you got to get both together and say, this is your team. There's 7 games left, 8 games left, whatever it is.
Handing the keys to the 2 kids nobody wanted that you signed in late spring, but that's where they're at.
Just feel terrible for the mid-major teams that these guys would be
They'd
all
be
league
stars,
guys in
wouldn't
the
they?
Atlantic
You're right.
10 or whatever. So
Pretty wild. Bright for their future, but right now Michigan's still in the present. Obviously, tough loss here. Have to get back up and get going. Always a tough road game at Indiana on Sunday. Brendan will be there, and we'll see what happens then. So for Brendan, I'm Nick. We'll talk to you guys later.